that when you say skill training, what do you mean by skill training compared? Because you're saying athletic training, but it's like a combination of like you're working out, but it's also like it's specific for whatever sport you're doing. So kind of explain that, because I'm not 100%.
Different things. Not talking about the actual skill. So we do have a side that's the actual skill, like dribbling the ball, shooting the ball. So that kind of acquisition, the acquisition of the skill to perform the sport.
Okay.
But on the other side, and you've worked with athletes before too, right? You can get like a D1 athlete, you can get a professional athlete, and you'd be surprised that sometimes when they walk in the door to train, they can't fucking squat, right? Like you see them squat and you're like, oh man, that's really shitty. You know, whether it's like an ankle mobility issue or a hip issue or just like this motor learning, like they just don't fucking squat because they didn't really work out. They just played basketball and they got really good at basketball, right?
Right.
So it's like from a foundational level too, right? Like understanding, oh, okay, like why load you with a barbell if you can't even squat in the beginning? Let's build the skill of squatting. Let's build the skill of whatever movement, a hip hinge, a hang, a climbing skill, whatever it is.
Yeah, so understanding the mechanics of the movement. Yeah. Okay.
Like teaching and educating somebody and then working on like building all that stuff.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Like a lot of people that are like anybody that does any repetitive motion, any sport, whether it's basketball, tennis, whatever it is, I feel like the better they get at the sport, the worse they get as a human.
The worse they get in the gym, right?
In other words, like a good example is like I was telling you earlier that I know Mario Sperry. Bro, the guy grabs you, he will crush your neck, but he can't lift his arm over his head. Yeah. It's like it's limited to that sport. And I tried helping him. He's an older cat, so he's sometimes a little bit like stubborn because in his mind he thinks more is better. So it's very difficult to kind of like with the older generation. Well, I'm saying older generation, it's kind of my generation, to be honest with you. They're kind of stuck in their ways. It's like, oh well, I don't do that. Like I don't stretch and So it's like one of those things. It's like what? Like you got to learn how to move better. Like the repetitive motion of
or just do less.
Or do less, but athletes that'll never happen.
Yeah, they don't believe in it. So the funny thing with that, and what you start to kind of realize is there's this weird misconception that more is better, right? And if you look at it from just like a philosophical standpoint, stress plus stress equals
more stress.
More stress, right? So where's like the logic behind that? And in combat sports specifically, you see that, right? Like they fight, they're training like 6 hours a day, fighting like fucking animals, and then they're like, oh, I'm beat up, I'm banged up, but now I gotta go lift weights. And it's like they believe that, oh, now I have to do this strength conditioning component to be a better grappler. And they don't have anything to do with the other, right?
Yeah, like, one has nothing to do with the other.
No, you're gonna get better at grappling by grappling. You're gonna get better at basketball by playing basketball. You're gonna get better at all these things by doing that sport. So the strength conditioning side is not necessarily meant to be a job or to build mental toughness. No. You do that shit in your sport or whatever activity you do. What the strength conditioning side is meant to do, at least in my mind, is to aid you in recovery, aid you in understanding of your body, what's kind of fucking banged up, what's not, and how can we work to build something that's a little bit more resilient through recovery. Because that's the most important performance metric you can think of. If you feel like shit and you're going to go compete, you're going to compete like shit. If you feel fucking fresh and you go out there, you're going to
you're going to murder people. You're going to murder people.
That's like my philosophy especially if I work with a combat athlete. Like, I really take into mind that you're training like fucking 6 hours a day. Why are we out here doing fucking good mornings, posterior chain work, and fucking sprinting up fucking stadium stairs? It's just volume on top of volume. When are they going to fucking recover?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, and I've seen, I saw when Faraz, the GSP's old.
Veer Zahabi.
Yeah, Veer Zahabi. I remember a few years back, Joe Rogan had him on his podcast, and he was talking about like the principle of not being sore. And in my mind, I came from, I'm old enough to where like back when the gym business was just a bunch of meatheads. I was one of those meatheads, so I had that bodybuilding kind of mentality. Now that I've gotten older, I've like actually done like an actual sport. I've kind of like personally seen injuries outside of me learning more in my own field and stuff like that, talking to people like you and stuff like that. I've noticed that like you want to try to do something every day, but it's like you said, it's like a skill related movement. So are we going to work on agility today? So it's like, okay, we're taxing your nervous system. All right, cool. Now we're going to do 5 box jumps. We'll just keep throwing something out of the air. Now we're working explosiveness. And then the next day, okay, now we're going to do heavy deadlifts. Okay, cool.
On strength.
Yeah. The day after that, we're gonna do yoga class, which is still working out, but it's yoga. It's somewhat recovery. So I've noticed now that it's more about like a volume game with purpose, not just volume for volume purposes.
100%.
Yeah, like and that's where a lot, like you said, a lot of the combat sports guys, they think it more is better. It's like, all right, I did an hour and a half of jujitsu or whatever it is, and then I'm gonna go do an hour and a half of legs. You're like, what are you doing? Like, this is dumb.
I mean, more people are starting, I think, to get into the avenue and realize, like, oh shit, like even like MMA guys, if you see like Holloway fought last night and he won. And apparently the guy doesn't even spar that much anymore, right? Like he doesn't spar because he knows how much of a toll that takes on his body. And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and you just mentioned like box jumps and deadlifting and yoga and working on like agility and taxing. I like to think of it from like just this very simple kind of metric. And it all comes from like George Hebert. So George Hebert, for those of you who don't know, is like the godfather of physical education from like 200 years ago, 100 years ago.
Okay.
He wrote a series of texts called The Natural Method. And all he's saying is essentially like people just need to be able to lift shit. People need to be able to do like gymnastics kind of movements. They need to be able to work cooperatively against each other, and everybody should know how to fight. Right? So
those are the 4 principles.
That's all you fucking need to do. Now we fast forward, a guy like Erwin LaCour creates MoveNet, where he takes that whole system and he systemizes it.
Okay.
I went, like Cliff Note, I went and I did those 2 certifications. But it really shifted my mindset into going a full circle, because you start to realize it's not about necessarily the particular like, oh, I'm box jumping, I'm doing this. No, it's about whether you can be effective or efficient in whatever movement you're trying to do. Because all of those things, speed, power, strength, hypertrophy, recovery, all of them are a subsequent result of you practicing. None of those things matter inherently, right? Oh, I'm focusing on agility. No, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Focus on doing the task that you're working agility on as efficiently as possible, and your agility is going to improve. Because my agility isn't my ability to change direction. Agility is my ability to change direction in response to an external stimulus.
Right, which is your movement in the ground.
Exactly, yeah. Right? So if you're doing jujitsu,
right.
Agility is not how quickly I can get from position to position. Agility is how quickly I can get to position and recognize, oh, I'm getting a collar choke. Oh, he's taking my back, he's sinking the arm. Oh, I gotta address this, right? And who's better is who's faster at making decisions.
Right.
Right.
So it's a lot of like brain power, more not just muscular power.
Yeah. Now, granted, if there's 2 of you and you both are equally as smart and you're both equally as good as making decisions, he who's stronger probably gonna fucking win, right? Because like fucking get your neck and then fucking.
Well, hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you liked that clip. And if you'd like to see another clip, please go here. Or if you'd like to watch the full episode, you can also go here.